There's one policy that I did not touch, and that is the boot policy. So how does the server boot the system? So let's create one. So in here, I specify my boot policy. I'm going to say FC boot because I'm going to do fiber channel boot right now. First of all, I can specify, do I want to use local storage? Meaning, do I want to add my virtual media CD-ROM drive as the first boot option? That's probably what I'm going to want, right? I want to be that when my ISO image is mounted, that's going to be the first item that I want to boot from. Otherwise, if there's no virtual media mounted, I'm going to skip it because I do not have a CD-ROM drive in my server anymore. Now, if I'm doing boot from SAN, so if I'm doing boot from remote storage, I can no longer add the local disks here. So it's either booting from local disks or booting from remote storage, never at the same time. So in this case, I'm first going to focus on fiber channel boot. What I do here is I add, actually I can do Pixie boot as well with adding LAN boot, but nobody uses that. So I'm going to add a SAN boot target. The name that I'm going to specify here is something you need to pay attention to. We previously configured our VHBA templates, right? I've given them names, but that's not the name of the actual VHBA. The actual VHBA name is configured in the server's profile template or in the server's profile itself. So what I can configure here is what I'm later going to configure in the server's profile template. And be sure to use the exact same name because it's also case sensitive. So I usually give these names FC0 and FC1 for that matter. So FC0 and FC1. Then I need to specify which worldwide port name do I want to boot from. Right? I cannot ask the network what kind of options do you have for me and then select one. No. I need to manually specify the exact port worldwide name that I want to use to boot my disk, to use to boot this. So let me dive into a MDS and open up a port so I can use a boot disk. So I have a couple disks enabled now, and this is the one that I want to boot from in vSAN 100. So this is the port worldwide name that I'm going to copy and paste here. And that is the target disk. Yes, this does not have anything to do with the local VHBA. What I specify here as my boot disk is the actual disk. So that's what you saw me doing here, right? I selected the port worldwide name of an actual disk in the JBOD. That's what I configure here. And this, in the lab, this port worldwide name will be given to you. You will be specifying a given port worldwide name to you. Of course, you need to see that in the MDS switch as well, right? And pay attention to the exact target that you need to configure based on the location and the rack that you're on. Because Cisco is using actual storage arrays, of course there are going to be different port worldwide names for each of the racks that you are on. So depending on the rack that you're on, you're going to have to specify a different worldwide name to boot. And that port worldwide name will be given to you in a sort of a table that's going to specify are you in RTP, are you in San Jose or in Brussels. And then I think in Brussels and in San Jose they have 2 racks. So then what the rack number is, and the rack number is something that is also given to you. So you are on Brussels rack 21, for example. So then you already know what the exact port worldwide name is. And of course you can check that with the port worldwide name that you see logging into your MDS switch, because it has to log into your MDS switch, right? So we specified that boot target. On Fabric B, the port worldwide name is going to be slightly different. So let me log into MDS2. vSAN 200, interface FC15, vSAN 201, interface FC16. Switch port mode, fabric loop, no shut. So the disk that I want to boot from on fabric B is this one. Add boot target to the secondary SAN target. There we go. There we go. So that is my fiber channel boot target or fiber channel boot policy. That's all I need to do. Know what the boot target should be. So the LAN ID and the worldwide port name both will be given to you. And that is all that I need to do on my UCS to make sure that I'm booting from this fiber channel target. So the difference between primary and secondary here is FC0 and FC1. So I specify, let's say, the VHBA running across fabric A and the VHBA running across fabric B. So they are now called primary and secondary. And I can add a target either to the primary boot statement or to the secondary boot interface. And then per interface, so per VHBA, I can specify two targets. So it's going to first attempt the primary interface and the primary target. Then it's going to attempt the primary interface and the secondary target. And then it's going to run the secondary interface, primary target, secondary interface, secondary target. So primary and secondary per target is what I configure here. So I first specify FC0 and FC1 being primary and secondary. Then I add the primary target to each of them. So both have a primary target. And I could potentially add a secondary target to another worldwide name. Let's take the next one here. And copy that here. Paste. Copy it again, copy, paste. So that is my secondary target for the primary interface. And then it's going to attempt this target first, then this target, and then maybe the fourth target. So I can give up to 4 targets in my boot policy. This secondary target is the one on the second MDS, and this primary SAN is the fabric A version. So the primary SAN and the secondary SAN, that is going to be my fabric A and fabric B. Or did I misconfigure that? No, this was MDS2, right? Yeah, I misconfigured that. So I took a MDS2 worldwide name and put it on the primary interface. That's what I did wrong. Yeah, sorry. It was just an example from a port worldwide name. Sorry. Okay. So that is my fiber channel boot policy. So booting from a JBOD is different than booting from the VNX. Well, technically that's not different. The only difference is on a VNX, you will have only one port worldwide name that you use for all of your blades. In my case, I have a separate disk for every server. So that's different, yes, but on a VNX, so in a production environment, I have different blades, and those blades will all have their own worldwide port name, right? Going down. That VNX down here is going to receive those requests on a single port with a single portal wide name. So this VNX or NetApp or what you want to use there is going to have a single portal wide name where it's going to expect traffic from all three blades on. And then internally, that VNX is smart enough to map the exact disk behind, or LUN or virtual thing behind that. So when blade 1 accesses the port, the VNX knows it needs to serve data from that disk. And when this blade is accessing the port wide name, it knows that it needs to serve data from that disk. So that is just intelligence inside the storage box. In our case, with the JBot, it's a cheap solution. I have that JBot with a single port with multiple flaggies. So I have these disks here, each with their own port worldwide name. And then there is one interface, but all those port worldwide names are on that single interface. So then traffic from blade 1 is accessing this port worldwide name, and traffic from blade 2 is accessing the different port worldwide name. So that is my fiber channel boot policy. I specify the worldwide name that I'm given, I specify the LUN ID that I'm given, and now I want to move on with iSCSI. So I'm going to do two things for you. I'm going to run iSCSI boot as well. Right. So I did the fiber channel boot policy, and now I'm going to create another one for iSCSI boot. Again, I'm going to add the CD-ROM drive. That's what I want to have there. And then I'm going to go into my iSCSI section. Now the fun part is that I can't do a lot here. The only thing that I can specify here is what is the name of the iSCSI VNIC that I'm going to use. And now this requires some explanations. If I want to do iSCSI boot, I have to do a number of things. So I am running, let's say, a VNIC in my blade that allows a number of VLANs to go to the operating system, right? Now, one of the VLANs in this VNIC is my iSCSI VLAN. That's where I host my iSCSI traffic. In that VLAN, I want to hijack that VLAN and go in there and configure some things. Now this VNIC is a pure Ethernet VNIC, right? For iSCSI, to perform iSCSI booting, I need to set up a TCP session even before I already booted the server. That's why Cisco takes that VLAN and it's going to hijack that for just a few seconds and say, I'm going to create an iSCSI VNIC. That iSCSI VNIC is not an actual VNIC. Actually, it is on the Palo card, but it's not an actual VNIC because what this is going to do is it's going to have an IP address configured. It's going to have authentication configured properly. And it's going to have an iSCSI target configured. So what this iSCSI VNIC is my iSCSI initiator. That's what this is. I configure my iSCSI initiator settings on the iSCSI VNIC. So along with having an Ethernet VNIC, I need to have an iSCSI VNIC to run my iSCSI traffic. Now I want to show you how this works exactly, but I do require some Ethernet configuration first. So the fun part is, what can I do in a boot policy? You can see that in 2.0 they were not done implementing iSCSI properly. Because in the boot policy, all I can configure is the name of this iSCSI VNIC that I am going to configure in the server's profile. I cannot use a template for this. I have to manually specify that in each service profile, or each service profile template. So in this boot policy, all I can do is tell the VNIC name. So let's focus on that. First do the boot policy, and then I'm going to show you how to do iSCSI boot on the system. So Firebase channel boot, you're going to trust me, right? Or let's just do both. Let's do a fun part. Come on, log in. So meanwhile, I'm going to prepare my switches to run iSCSI booting. So for that, first of all, I need my Nexus 5000s. This is my Nexus 5000 that is running the uplink towards the UCS on ports 1, 9, and 10. Now, I think the configuration is empty, so I need to reconfigure that. Switch port mode trunk. All right, so I was going to configure the uplink, the network uplink from my UCS, from the Nexus 5K to the UCS. So what I want to do here is, according to this drawing, I have my MDS switch here. That's going to be my iSCSI server, right? That's going to be my iSCSI target. And I'm going to run this across this Ethernet link towards the Ethernet link for the UCS. That's down here on ports 9 and 10. So I'm going to run this connection from the fabric interconnect all the way up to the MDS. So I'm going to use VLAN 501 for my iSCSI stuff. So I allow that VLAN on the ports. I create the VLAN on the port. I use interface E1/11. And let's use an access port in VLAN 501. Edge port. Cool. So I configured VLAN 501 to let that pass between my UCS system and the MDS, so that layer 2 path is now working. Actually, I need to focus first on my network uplinks. Let me first configure their uplinks real quickly. Oh, I already did that. Uplink interface 1.9 should be active and running. Yep, it is. Let's move on to the MDS. Now, I already configured some iSCSI IP addresses. That's done here in the LAN tab. So I already specified the addresses that my iSCSI initiators will get. So my iSCSI VNICs will get an address from this iSCSI initiator pool. That's what I already configured. So the number 1 is still free. 198.18.0.1. Speed 1000. Let's see if it's up. Not yet. iSCSI feature showing gig 11. This always takes, for some reason, it takes a long time to get this up and running. This one is up, so now this one should come up. There we go. So now we have our gig Ethernet interface on the MDS up and running. So I'm going to enable iSCSI, enable the interface iSCSI, and now I'm going to configure the boot target that I want to present to my iSCSI host, right? So remember that this is the target that I want to boot from on Fiber Channel, but now I want to boot from the same target, but now on a iSCSI way. So I'm going to configure an iSCSI virtual target with a certain IQN, 2013-1213, dot boot disk. The port worldwide name is going to be this one, and we're going to say all initiators are permitted. Advertising on interface gig 1/1, and that's what I need to do. So permit all the initiators, ensure that I advertise it towards the certain gigabit Ethernet interface, and remember this IQN. So I'm going to write this down. That's going to be my IQN to boot from. Now, as far as the IQN name, I also configured that pool, right, with 16 addresses. Now, I'm going to limit that right now because I want to be sure that I always get the same IQN assigned. So I'm going to create a pool out of just one IQN. So I created only one IQN, UCS blade 0. So that means that I know for sure that my blade will get UCS blade 0 as an IQN because I need to specify that name in the MDS. So I'm going to configure the iSCSI initiator based on the name, and that's going to be IQN 2013-1213 : UCS blade 0. That is going to access a resource in vSAN 100, right? Because this port worldwide name is in vSAN 100, so that's where I'm going to allow him access in. And I'm going to statically assign a node worldwide name and a port worldwide name. What is the final step in my iSCSI configuration? Zoning. I currently do not have zoning in vSAN 100, so I'm going to take my two port worldwide names that I want to zone together. That is my target and my initiator. They need to be zoned together. So the initiator, that is my UCS blade, and the target. Activate the zone set, and you will see that the disk is of course active currently and the host is not, because the host I did not configure yet. But I know for sure that that host will get this port worldwide name because I statically configured it. So as soon as there is an iSCSI initiator logging into this switch, it will automatically get this port worldwide name. And the zoning will be active and I will be able to boot from that particular disk. So that is just the Ethernet and the iSCSI configuration on the MDS that I had to do before doing iSCSI boot on the UCS. All right. And like I said, when I'm doing an iSCSI boot policy, all I can specify is the iSCSI vNIC name, so the initiator vNIC name. I'm going to call that initiator vnik1 and initiator, actually just let me configure one. So this name is just like I would configure a VHBA to boot from, like that FC0 or FC1. Actually, let me use a little bit different name. Use iSCSI1. So my iSCSI1 is going to be my iSCSI initiator vnik in the service profile template. And I'll show you how that works in the service profile template configuration. So I have two boot policies now, an iSCSI boot policy booting from interface iSCSI1, and I have a fiber channel boot policy booting from fiber channel 0 and fiber channel 1. So this is what I wanted to do in terms of server configuration. So now we can start doing our service profile template configuration.